Welcome to Country Fried Rock, where we talk with musicians to find out what inspires their creativity. Country Fried Rock, music uncovered. Today, my guest is Joey Kneiser from the band Glossary. Thanks so much for being with us on Country Fried Rock.
I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate you being here. When did you start playing?
I guess I've just been playing music kind of my whole life, just making up songs when I was younger. When I was probably about 16 was when I first heard like underground music. It was a huge epiphany to me. I didn't realize that you could play music, it not be on the radio, like that you could have a career, that wasn't like a mainstream career. I'd first heard like The Replacement, Fugazi, and bands like that who were not getting played really on the radio, but were actually, living off of playing in a band. And I think that's when I kind of decided that that's what I would pursue. And that I would pursue that actual trying to learn how to write songs. And that way that someday, I'd always be the band. I wouldn't have to worry about if I played guitar, I'd have to find a band, or if I played drums or something, I'd always have to find a band. But if I really just focused on trying to write songs, I'd always be the band and me.
Before you discovered the underground music stuff, what were you doing as a kid? Like, what spoke to you musically? Because not every kid does that.
When I was a kid, I was like probably most kids that grew up. I'm 37 years old, so I grew up. Most of my youth was in the 80s. So, I grew up listening to what was on the radio. Obviously, I loved Michael Jackson and, things like that. I was also, as a kid of that era, got into like the early days of like hip hop and stuff, really into some more weirder hip hop bands. Like I really liked De La Soul and in the later 80s. I remember being extremely obsessed with De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising. I used to come home from middle school, and it was back when Neo MTV Raps was on, and I'd do it like every day when I got home from school. And, then I'd watch Headbangers Ball on Saturday nights when I was younger, and then 120 Minutes on Sunday night. I had an older brother, so he was listening to a lot of metal. Like my older brother, he listened to like lots and lots of metal, like Iron Maiden or something like that, but then he'd listen to like Run DMC, or like NWA, or, I was listening to a lot of different stuff.
When you finally discovered The Replacements, which got you into that first?
When I first heard it, I felt like it was probably the same as the people that were a couple of years younger than me. Like when I first heard Nirvana, I first heard The Replacements, and I had heard I remember one time like listening to college radio, hearing Left of the Dial, and then realizing what the song meant, like listening to it Left of the Dial and understanding the song is talking about all that music that's on these little college radio stations, the stations that are under 100, and I remember it being like, just kind of my introduction into an underground world. And I started skateboarding around 1987. I skateboarded for about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my other, it was so attached to underground music. Like the first time I ever heard like Fire Hose.
Yeah.
Or like, the Minutemen,
mm-hmm.
or like Black Flag and stuff like that was in that skate video. So that was kind of like an introduction also to me to that kind of counterculture. I would definitely say that Let It Be and Tim were the two records that like, when nowadays when I think about that, I think about how young those guys are on that record. Like you listen to like Let It Be, and I think Paul Worshiper is like maybe 21 or 22 on that record. And
crazy
how those songs so well written, it blows me away. Like 21-year-old look at.
It's a little different now, but did you get into like bootleg records and stuff back then?
Oh yeah, that was still the era of like, pre, digital world. So like it was still the mixtape era, and like when everybody was just, I remember the first time I heard punk rock band Jawbreaker, which I was really obsessed with at the time, I had a tape that had like 2 of their records on it, and I listened to that tape like until it wore out, It given me, just like back in the tape swapping days where people were just giving each other tapes. So that's really how I got everything, was just somebody recording a tape for me or making a mixtape for me, and then I'd find out a band through that. And, it was still when fanzines were really how you kept connected to bands, because nobody had a website. And so you actually had to physically go to a record store, and then all the people that were into the, the weird underground music that you were into, that's where they all were.
Yeah, there was a human interaction element to that, to like finding out the stuff and hanging out at the record store and that sort of thing.
For sure. You had to actually go to the place, where, all the, people that listen to the same kind of things you do. Now it's so anonymous, and it brings everybody close together in the digital age, but then you never really get to meet face to face, or, you can find everybody who's into the same thing you can, but you're still anonymous.
You all as a band have continued to have that sort of following, though, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're such a tiny band. We became, like, over time, like, it's just, music is just different right now because, we live in, like, just a content-saturated environment where it's like everybody's a content provider. I mean, everybody has a phone in their pocket, so everybody's a photographer or making videos and just so much content. So nowadays, the struggle for anybody is how to rise to the top, how to get, more and more people to know anything, being a photographer or anything. It's just now that it's made it easy for anybody to do, which is awesome because it gives anybody who has an unattainable dream, like, access to it, put so much content out there. So it's hard sometimes for, like, even though it's easy now for a band to be a band and you got a straight shot to fans, it's to find those fans.
Absolutely.
Is the hard part. So, we're still like a small band, and I mean, we've just become more so of like maybe like a cult band,
Right.
Just the people who know about us love us, but it's still a small group of people. Hey, this is Joey Kneiser from the rock band Glossary, and you're listening to Country Fried Rock.
Let's fill some of those gaps then from you figuring out about this whole underground music scene and kind of how that worked at the time to how did it go into you writing songs?
I realized at an early age that, like, the only way to make I thought, when I was like 16, that the easiest way for me to pursue music for the rest of my life would be to write songs, and that I'd have to try to figure out how to write songs because it seemed like if you could write songs, it was like had some kind of like power to it. One of the things that was, I still kind of feel in the music, playing music, it's like one of the hardest things is to just create something out of nothing,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and to do it for a long time and try to do it consistently is even harder. So I just decided that I was going to try to pursue, my life in music would be pursuing the actual writing side
Mm-hmm.
of it. I just, over time, try to get better at it and find people that liked what I was doing, writing the songs about.
So where did that road take you early on?
Well, I mean, it took me through, like, I think anybody who's young and getting into music and just likes music in general. I mean, it took me, like, through every little genre and subculture of, like, indie rock. Our band technically started in, like, 97. Obviously in that time, when I was, like, in college. And so I still, like, obsessed with bands at the time. When I first coming to my own writing, I was obsessed with, like, Pavement, Archers
Mm-hmm.
of Bow, Pixies,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, bigger, like, kind of influential, like, 90s bands and indie rock 90s bands. So, I mean, that's how our band started, was out of, like, an indie rock, kind of the 90s indie rock. That's kind of what we were all into. And then I think once I had graduated college, I started listening to more and more, like, troubadour kind of songwriters. I think I heard, like, Townes for the first time, and then I heard, like, Clark, those kind of writers. And I got really into, like, Tom Waits, and obviously, like, Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen, and people like that. And I was, we started getting really into, like, Randy Newman, getting into actual just, like, people who were really good songsmiths and, like, narrative songwriters, more and more understanding the art of writing a song. Because I think before, when I came out of that 90s kind of rock world, like, you could be just obscure and you could just write words that sounded clever together, and, like, maybe the meaning of the song was left up to the interpreter of it, like
Right.
the listener. But then when I heard these songs that were linear or straight or about something, and how powerful it is when you hear a song and you're like, what the song is about, really well written, and I was just like, it kind of just brought me back to those original days when I first heard The Replacements. Because that's how their songs were. Like, you listen to songs and then you knew. I always say that, like, whenever I first heard Satisfied, it was like probably when kids first heard, like, Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's still to this day, I hear that song and it makes me feel like I'm, like, 17. So
There have definitely been huge stylistic influences that have changed what comes out in your sound.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the band has definitely been trying to figure out what we want to do and what we can do, like, what our abilities are. I mean, definitely over, like, the last record, I was listening to, like, a lot more R&B-ish and gospel-y kind of music, and, so it has a little bit of those kind of elements to it. We like rock, music. Rock music is really, like, our, forte, just good rock, pop songs. So, I mean, we all love, like, Bruce Springsteen and artists like that are writing songs but have a big kind of rock and roll sound. And also having rhythm has become to us. Things kind of having groove and I don't know, I mean, rock and roll kind of started, like 60 years ago, and wrapped around it was the idea of dancing, I think. And a lot of that has been kind of taken out of rock and roll and put maybe in other kinds of genres of music. That's about moving in rock and roll. So we were, always kind of attracted to having rhythm and swinging a little bit and but still having other kinds of songs. We definitely have folky-ish, country-ish type of things.
Mm-hmm. Particularly with this most recent record, as you all were moving towards writing the songs for that, what does that look like for you all when you've had a lot of time together and a lot of opportunity to refine what it is you're doing?
I mean, one, it's like you just play, when you play together for so long. Me and Bingham, who plays bass, have been playing together for like 15 or 16 years.
Yeah.
So it's like when you've just been playing with somebody that long, you already kind of, what, there's instinctive things, I think, that you just actually do because you kind of, the way everybody thinks. You're not really going to get too many curveballs as far as somebody playing something completely out of the ordinary for them or anything like that. So I think that just as a band, just trying to move forward is like writing. I've been just constantly trying to write better songs and sing better and the band play better. And I think this record, I wrote the song. I basically did nothing but write the songs over maybe a 3-month period. And then we rented a house for 2 months out in the country. And then we would go out there and rehearse, for like the first 4 weeks or something when we could. And then the second 4 weeks, we actually set up a little studio in the house. And then we just recorded the record. It was almost like our little Big Pink or something.
Yeah.
So it was a good creative time for sure.
Today, my guest is Joey Kneiser from the band Glossary. Does doing something like that keep it fresh for you all working together?
Oh, yeah. Any way we can do things differently. It's one of those things where, the band's constantly, we're always thinking about trying to push the band and try to take it different places, while we're in the middle of that and working. I remember when we were working on rehearsing the new record, we were just like, man, this is going to be such a weird record for us. We would think that. And then, we would record, once we finished all the tracking and stuff and we listened to it, it's not that weird, it's not as weird as we thought. There are definitely different things that we haven't done on other records and stuff, but it still sounds like us, just a different us. I mean, that's the key, I think, for us is just try to do something different. I think that's probably the key in human beings in general. Moving forward is changing it up.
For people who are coming to your music now for the first time, what specifically brought those changes? You said a little bit that you'd been listening to some R&B and some gospel and wanted to keep it moving or dancing or swinging. How did that come into the process?
One big thing about it is, in the writing process of the songs, I wrote a lot of it playing piano, which I kind of wanted a lot of the songs to have chords and stuff that I've never normally used in gospel music. They use a lot of diminished chords and minor 9 chords and stuff, which I've never used. So I had to I didn't really play piano very well. I spent a couple months practicing for hours and hours and hours to where I could get myself to play like that. And I definitely can't play. I'm definitely not a gospel piano player or an R&B piano player by any means, but I just trying to understand a little bit of progressions and chords of that kind of music while making it in our weird indie rock and roll vein,
Where did that come from?
I think it just became, we all listened to a lot of that kind of just old R&B, coming from Tennessee. I mean, we're not far from Memphis and we're not far from Muscle Shoals, actually in Murfreesboro, which is 2.5 hours from Muscle Shoals and maybe 3 hours from Memphis. So we just all listened to a lot of old R&B and just, a lot of just music that has some kind of fire in it and soul to it. Just trying to figure out how to take, those ideas and put it in, mix it up with what we do, make it as an influence or something, and not a throwback or anything like that. They will make it a R&B record or anything like that, but just use it in the same influences, tons of artists that everybody loves, from Van Morrison and Paul Simon, or even, you listen to the first couple Bruce Springsteen records of how much R&B-ish, jazzy, influences on those. I mean, I think that used to be a big part of music is people, nowadays, since there is so many bands, more bands than ever, more records coming out than ever before, I think it's easy to get locked down in a specific genre. There are kids who are just I like garage rock, or I like, rockabilly. And you just stay kind of in your own little bubble. But, music used to be about, you start a band and you just feel everything about everything you come across that you like, and you try to put it together, and it would make a weird, maybe interesting band. Because, I think about growing up, I think about this a lot of times because I was like an MTV brat when I was a kid. Like, I watched MTV all the time. So I remember being just young and turning on the TV and seeing the Bastards of Young video,
Yep.
and then seeing like a Phil Collins.
Yep.
And then after that, maybe seeing like a White Snake video or something, like how eclectic it is, like,
Yeah.
and now it seems like that eclectic has kind of disappeared a little bit. And so when I come across bands, I think that have that, like for instance, like a modern band that I really love is Deer Tick.
Yes.
I think they're trying to do that, trying to do different things. Listening, you can tell that they listen to a lot of different kinds of music, and they try to put it all in there somehow and make something of your own out of it. And I think that's, to me, when I hear bands like that, it's like really refreshing, and because it seems like you can get really trapped in aesthetic, and you start hearing a lot of bands that like come out and they just kind of they have a sound, and the sound is great, but it's reminiscent of a sound that already exists. I really like that eclectic aspect, and that's one thing that we tried to do,
You all also happen to play live a whole lot. So at what point do you all take new songs out to people?
For the most part, a lot of the times the new songs aren't going out until after we make the record. For the most part, for these Glossary records, especially the last 3 or 4 of them, I'm kind of batch writing them, like write single songs throughout the year and then get 10 or 12 and then make a record. I think about an idea that I want thematically the album to kind of be about, and a sensibility of it, and then I stop everything and spend a couple months of just writing songs for it. And then we just record, like for instance, this record, I think by the time the record was finished, we had only played one of the songs ever live. We had to actually learn how to play them. The first time that people in the band were hearing the songs were when we were rehearsing them.
Right.
I'd come in and be like, okay, here's a song, let's work on this one, and then we'd work on it. When I heard the record mixed and stuff for the first time, it was crazy because the songs were so new. We hadn't even played them. Hey, this is Joey from Glossary, and check out the new Glossary record, Long Live All of Us, and get it at iTunes and Amazon or at lastchancerecords.com. And you can stop by the Glossary website at glossary.us, a bunch of free older records that you can download.
You've mentioned that that's how you approach writing a Glossary record, but I know there's at least one other solo record out.
Yeah, there's just that one. There's just the one that's All Night Bedroom Revival.
What does a solo record do for you creatively?
That solo record basically was in between like Glossary records. And then, I just wanted to put something out, and I just had time where I was at home. I was just like, I'm going to write a bunch of songs, and I'm just going to record them myself. And so that's what I did. And I did it really quickly. I'd write a song, and then, I'd set up one mic and play guitar and sing into it at the same time. And then I'd put a little, instrumentation on top of it, mix it. I did that for like 10 songs. And then I was like, I'm just going to put this out as a record, because it seemed like it was a record to me. So I just put it out as a record, and I was pretty overwhelmed with how people picked up on it. And, it became like its own, asking me about it all the time. I could have easily made those Glossary songs. It was just like, we share Todd, who plays guitar and pedal steel. He also tours with Lucero. So, he was just out on tour. We had some downtime. I weren't doing anything. And I have to be doing something at all times. I have to have some kind of project. So it was just one of those things where I just wrote some songs. And, I could write more just straight singer-songwriter songs. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when I'm thinking about Glossary songs, we got this big rock band. So, I kind of want to have interesting things for everybody to do and stuff. But so for me to just sit down and write songs, it's just like a voice and a guitar and a little instrumentation. I think it could have easily been a weird Glossary record if we recorded it ourselves. Just did it. It was kind of liberating for me because I didn't have to worry about anything,
Yeah.
If there was mistakes, trying to make it perfect, I wanted that sound, and I was going to give it away for free anyway. So, that record you can download on the Glossary website.
When you go in and you batch write these songs and then y'all come in and you rehearse and record, what do you look for in that process with the band?
We just have a couple different people that we've used over the years. Several of the records have been recorded and mixed by Matt Pence, drummer of Centromatic. This record we brought our friend Mikey Allred. So we just have we're like, We've done it so many times that, we kind of just like to use the same people. Our friend Drew Brinkley, who does most of the design stuff, to Mikey or Matt Pence, engineering and mixing the records, and our friend John Baldwin masters them all. Finance all of our records on our own. So we worked with the same people. It's, in the modern world of like being in a band is like, since you can make a record out of your house, since you can mix and master records out of your house, like there's so many people that are people that you like, and they're in the same place that you are. Like they're trying to make a name for themselves in this, or trying to get enough of a following in this that they can make a living off of it too. So you kind of go into a mutual, partnership. Us and Mikey, who did our new record, it's like he should have charged us. Then, his abilities are way beyond what he makes. But, it's like trying to build up something, get your name on some projects to get out there. And if we went to some big producer who's already like super established and stuff, there's just no way we could afford it. I think Glossary has made every record that we've ever made, recorded, mixed, and mastered for like $5,000 or less. Era of being able to do things out of your house. That's why we decided to buy some gear throughout the year. We just what we did,
You all really have that kind of down to a science of that synergy and the network of friends.
Oh, yeah. I think that we're just lucky for people that have helped us out and stuff.
What changes as you take them on the road?
Especially the songs on this record hadn't been road tested yet, so we'll change little things. It's just one of those things that happen to a song once it's been played. After you've played it a whole bunch,
right,
you kind of ease into it more, and you might have do something or think of something. You're like, oh, I wish I would have done that when we recorded it, but that's just something you have to kind of let go of. You record a record, I guess, really is just a record of a moment in time. So all you can really do is do what you can at the moment, and knowing that it's going to change, and knowing that as time passes, you might look back and be like, oh, we should have done that. But you have to think too hard about it and let that stuff go. Songs definitely do become more rowdy and rock and roll and stuff when you're playing them live.
So this project, on the one hand, is finished because it's been recorded, but the projects continue. So where is that leading you?
Well, there's always a lot of stuff with Glossary to be doing. For like one, we're a really small band, and we're like have this like kind of cult following around us, but we've never been able to ever pursue it in the way that we've wanted to pursue it. Like, for instance, I think we've been trying to find a booking agent for 10 years or something, and we've never been able to get one. I think we've been turned down by every booking agency in America. We've never been able to tour like we wanted to, or we've never been able to get out there as much as we want to because it isn't cost effective. All the shows that we play are booked by us or just out of the kindness of our friends' bands who take us out with them, like Lucero or the Truckers.
Right.
That's always a constant thing for us is trying to play more. Our number one goal always. It's the hardest one for us because now since bands only make money playing live, every band is on tour all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. And so it's like, 10 years ago, a band that you loved and it would come through your town maybe once a year or something, now they're coming through your town like 3 times a year. When you're a small band like us, nobody's really going to take a risk on you because there's so many other bands on tour that they can be booking that are actually making them money. From an industry standpoint, I completely understand. I actually went to school for me and Bingham, actually have music business degrees. I think about things in terms of that. It's always our biggest goal. It really comes down to your popularity is just exposure.
Right.
The more people see you, the more people know about you. It's one of those things that we get new fans that find us out, and I can't believe they never knew of us. And then they look and they see how much stuff we have, and they're like, "Where's this band been? I can't believe this band has been out there doing this the whole time, and somehow been under my radar." You can track of us at Facebook at facebook.com/glossary, or on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is glossarytn. To be able to go out and on tour with Lucero, I think Lucero has done more for us than anybody has probably ever done. They put out Feral Fire. They've taken us out on several tours opening up. We played their family picnic that they have every year, which we're playing again this year. It's been a huge purveyor of our band. Always drops our name in interviews and stuff. Been really trying to get more people to know who we are. That is kind of the way we ended up, getting more people knowing about us as kind of this weird way through other bands, or like the Truckers taking us out in Patterson, talking about us in interviews. That's been our saving grace, actually. Most of our fans have come from the connection with those bands. Without that, I don't know what we'd do. We're extremely thankful for that.
The line that I heard from someone, this is the band that your favorite band listens to.
Yeah, that stuff like that. Yeah, we became like a band's band. Most of our fan base has been from being spread by other bands, like telling people, you should listen to this band. You know?
Is there anything else that you would want to bring to your team that just really jumps at you as being something that would benefit?
I think that the downfall of the major label system and labels in general just have little importance anymore. Really, the only thing that a band needs, to get out there and build a following is have a good booking agent and a good publicity agent. The two main things. Make sure that you've got good shows and you're playing good bills, and then make sure people know that those shows exist. Make sure your records are getting reviewed, and make sure you're getting interviews. And it's a sea of just tons and tons of content. It's just the more you're out there, your fans are out there. They're out there.
Right.
They just don't know you exist yet. They just have to find you. That's just the hard part, because it's this endless sea, and, you're just floating around in it, hoping to try to bump into people. We've been lucky to just kind of take, little steps here and there. And, our focus has always been just keep focusing on the records, keep focusing on being a better band, and writing good songs, and just keep putting out the best records we can. And then eventually, things will just, when you're just a small band, all you can do is get bigger if you keep doing it. It might be just a little drizzle, but it's still moving forward. I think in the end, human beings are never really content. Even if you were filling the 500-seat room, a year from now, you'd be like, man, I wish we were filling the 1,000-seat room down the road. When it comes down to it, if you're hanging out with your friends, you're making something that only you can make together. You're making something out of nothing with people that you love. In the end, you win regardless. I don't even know where the destination is. Where do you want to be? The act of it is just doing it. That's the great part about it.
If you could put together a bill of other bands that you're friends with, who would you want to make that happen with?
The bill for the new Lucero Family Picnic is one of those kind of bills. It's Lucero and Glossary, and then Austin Lucas, and I think John Paul Keith, maybe Shooter Jennings is on that bill. That sounds like a good time, fun time. Obviously our kind of sister bands are Lucero and Austin Lucas, and Two Cow Garage, and the Truckers, and we used to play with Slobberbone and the Drams, Central-Matic, bands like that. So anytime we play with any of those, where I think we're pretty content.
Appreciate it. Have a great week.
Hey, you too.
Country Fried Rock. Find the full playlist from this episode on countryfriedrock.org. Check us out on iTunes. No music, just talk. Our theme music is from The Full Tones. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts. Country Fried Rock. Copyright 2012 by Lilypad Productions. All rights reserved.
Ever he been helping us some country fried rock.
Hey y'all, it's Sloane Spencer. Thanks so much for finding all these new old episodes of Country Fried Rock. I've got something completely different available these days called Sleep with Rock Stars. And it all started from a listener comment back in the very early days of Country Fried Rock who said, I slow these down to 75% and fall asleep to them. And I was like, well, over the years I started thinking about it, and I recently started Sleep with Rock Stars. It's the Gen X sleep podcast, and you can find it at sleepwithrockstars.com or your favorite podcast app.